Hi everybody, this is Miss O'Donnell. Happy Monday and happy field study day. So we're going to be going on a virtual field study today to learn how to identify some different trees that are really common in Detroit and in Michigan. My hair is going everywhere. I'm going to show you some trees that are in my neighborhood, and a lot of them are in a lot of neighborhoods in Detroit and Michigan. And I'm going to show you some important things about each tree. So I might show you some of the leaves, I'm going to show you some of the bark, any seeds or nuts or cones that we find, and we're going to also try to see if there's any animals out here to see how they use the trees. So while I'm showing you some of these trees, I want you to take notes on your note catcher about what the leaves look like, what the bark looks like, and any seeds or cones and anything else you see about the tree. A quick note about the note catcher. I didn't have a printer, and I know some of you might not either. So what I did was I just copied it onto a blank sheet of paper, and I wrote the name of each tree, and this is on the note catcher on the website, so you can see that. I'm also, if you want to look at any bonus trees outside of your neighborhood, you can also do that as well. But these are the ones that I'm going to show you. So let's get started. We're going to start with the pine tree. Oh, that's a cool view. So the pine tree is super tall, and the pine tree has leaves that stay on all year round. It's an evergreen or a conifer. That means that the leaves don't fall off and they stay green. So the leaves on a pine tree look like long needles. There's some that have fallen and died that are not living anymore, but they look like long needles, and when they're alive, they're green. Sometimes they have a little bit of a smell to them. These ones don't smell super strong, but so they're long needles. They're kind of pokey. When you come and look at the bark, it's brown, but it's got some lighter color to it. It's kind of scaly. And then something about pine trees is that they create pine cones. So instead of having seeds or acorns, they've got some pine cones. I'm going to see if I can find some over here. Here's one of the pine cones. Oh, and a pine needle is attached to it. So actually, when you look in the sun, it starts to look a little lighter. It's almost like a little gray brown and a little white. There are lots and lots of pine trees in Michigan. So on your recording sheet, in the pine tree box, you're gonna use pictures and words to describe some things that you saw. So you might draw the pine cone, the needles, the pine needles, you might draw the bark. All of this is gonna help you with our writing later. Oh, and I actually just found some green pines that fell from the tree. All right, we're gonna move on to our next tree. Hi everybody, I'm back at another tree. I'm looking at a sycamore tree now, and this is on the Detroit Riverwalk, so if you would like to go look at this yourself, feel free. The sycamore tree is super cool. It's also pretty tall, not quite as tall as the pine tree, but it's still pretty tall. It has this really cool bark. So the bark is multiple colors, and it looks kind of camouflage. So it's got a lot of gray and white, and it's spotted, which I think is really cool and really pretty. Something else that's special about the sycamore tree is that it has these seeds that are like little balls up in the branches. So I'm gonna pause here and just let you look at some of those. You can see one right there. Higher up in the tree you see a few more, and they're just starting to come out because it's early spring, and those are the seeds that when it gets windy they fall off and they help to plant new trees. So you'll see some of them have already fallen to the ground here. There's no leaves on this tree right now because it's still really early spring, So I don't have any leaves to show you, but I will make sure to find some stories that show what the leaves do look like when they grow in. Hi everybody, I'm at a new tree now, and I'm at the Birch Tree. These are some of my favorite trees. They're super cool. The bark on them are really unique. So I'm going to zoom in on the bark here. The bark on birch trees peels off really easily. So it's very thin and it peels off. And there's some birch trees called paper birch trees because their bark peels off and looks just like paper. This one isn't a paper birch tree, but it's a birch tree, so it's similar. A lot of the bark from birch trees is actually used to make paper, so that's super cool. This one is starting to grow some leaves in. They're a little small right now. Hopefully you can see a little bit. So they're a lot different from the pine tree that we looked at earlier. They're round and flat. They've got a line going down the middle with some veins on each side. Remember, we learned about the ways that leaves make food for the tree. Let's see if I can find a couple more. Here's another one right here that's getting a little bigger. So you can see they get a little longer and they're kind of curved with a little point at the edge, at the end of it. Here's a little closer up example. You also might notice that they call that toothed, with a little like ridges on each side. In the spring and summer, these leaves turn yellow. These are kind of left over from the fall and winter, so they're not yellow, but the new ones that grow in you will see turn yellow. All right, see you at another tree. All right everybody, I'm back with a new tree. This tree looks really similar to the pine tree, but it's a little different. This is a spruce tree. So the reason why I say it looks similar is because it has needles that stay green just like the pine tree, but you'll notice the needles are a lot shorter. So the pine tree has long pines, this one just has shorter ones. If you peel one or two of them off, and this is how I know it's a spruce tree and not a fir tree or another type of conifer, they smell super good. They smell kind of like what a candle of a tree would smell like. So it's got these small needles. Just like a pine tree, it has cones. So here's an example of one of the cones that came from the spruce tree. It looks a lot different from the pine cone actually. So it's a lot slimmer and longer, where the pine cones ones are wider and shorter. I don't see any critters hanging out in this tree right now, but there are a lot of spruce trees in Michigan and a lot of animals need this for a lot of important reasons. The bark is a little bit hard to see because there's so many spruce needles in there, but the bark is brown. It's pretty tall, like a pine tree. It doesn't have multicolors like the sycamore tree or the birch tree do. It's all brown. And it doesn't peel off like the birch tree does. I hope you enjoy. Hi everybody, Miss O'Donnell here at another tree. I found some sugar maple trees actually on the DeQuinder Cut. So I used a tool from Grading of Detroit, and they have a map of where different trees are. These ones were planted a few years ago, so they're kind of slim, thin still. They're not very thick or wide or tall yet. It's a little bit harder to identify maple trees because their bark is brown and kind of smooth, like a lot of other trees. But what's different about them is their leaves. So I found a lot of these leaves at the bottom of the tree. So these leaves have three kind of pointy tops. Here's a smaller version of one of them. And all of the edges are pointed. I also see some buds here. Those are getting ready to start growing new leaves. These trees, when they get a lot bigger, can make maple syrup and sap. And I don't see any seeds from this tree at the moment. They're probably still growing from the tree's branches, but that might be something that you see in the spring and fall, or spring and summer, sorry. And the leaves in the spring and summer will turn green. And yeah, the maple tree is really popular in Michigan. It does look like a lot of other trees, so it's really important to look at the leaves to really find out the difference between them. All right, hope you enjoy.